John Paul II goes to Fatima, he's suddenly very pessimistic. He talks about apocalyptic developments. He talks about souls being lost to hell for lack of anyone to pray for them. But then when he goes back to Rome, he's talking about the modern world and the wonderful progress that man has made and interreligious dialogue and all the rest of it. But then finally, at the end of his pontificate around 2003, he's talking about silent apostasy throughout former Christendom. So this is what we're experiencing. It's the final stages of what he called the culture of death and the reflection of silent apostasy. People live, as he said in one of his final addresses back in 2003, Ecclesia in Europa, as if God no longer exists. They just live for this world. And they're all miserable. People are miserable. Half the country is on some sort of antidepressant medication. It's the therapeutic culture that Philip Reef talked about in his book. And he did that from a secular perspective. So all of this is of a piece. Abortion is basically the sacrament of this diabolical culture of death. And it must be protected at all costs, which is why abortion pills are exempted.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because I was thinking this week and reading just really these crazed people and sort of their obsession with abortion. And it reminded me, if you think back to the 1980s and 90s, and you and I were around, maybe a lot of our viewers weren't, but we were around. I mean, you had politicians that were bad, that were in favor of abortion, and they were still horrible, but essentially would admit, like, abortion's a bad thing. We don't really like them, but we don't want the government interfering. Like, they made false arguments that were sophistic, but they weren't like in love with abortion. They were like at least willing to admit, like, it's a sad thing, it's a tragedy. And there's been a real change, I think, among, frankly, the mainstream of the Democratic Party have turned it into rather a technical argument about the role of the government and how far they can be to stop a bad thing, into, like I said, treating it like a holy grail, like a sacrament that, like, more abortions, the better. And why do you think that change, that qualitative change to just sort of embracing abortion as opposed to allowing it or permitting it has come about?
Well, it's the Democrat Party is an abyss of nihilism and apostasy. That's all there is to it. They've completely lost sight of the divine. They've completely lost sight of man's eternal destiny. They don't care about the four last things: death, judgment, heaven, and hell. They laugh at that. They live for this world and this world only.